This webcam uses AI and its built-in gimbal to track you. Not like a hunter in the woods kind of situation, but more just keeping you in the center of the frame. It's called the Obsbot Tiny 4K. And it could be one of the best and most dynamic cameras available. So in this video, I'm going to break down some of the features, what the quality of it is like, and whether or not you should buy one. So let's take a look. I got to be honest with you, I really like the design of this. It says tiny in the name, and it is pretty small. It's got quite a big base, and it isn't the lightest webcam that you can buy, but it's not absolutely huge either. It is a plastic sort of finish on the outside, but it does almost give off a metallic sort of vibe. You have the camera itself, which is on this gimbal, which is, I think, is something like 270-degree gimbal or something like that. And obviously in its powered off state, it just sort of flops wherever it needs to be. Now you can tell this one from its predecessor because of one, the quality of it. This one is 4K, and it says it in the name. You can tell that it's a different one because it's got this red ring around the camera lens. On the front here we have our logo, and then we also have a little light bar which gives us some status information and information about whether or not the camera's tracking you. Then on the back of the base we have a USB-C port and an additional power port in case you're using a USB-C data port that isn't transferring any power. For the test that we're doing today though, I'm just using a regular USB-C port going into my Mac, so that's not going to be an issue for me. On the bottom we do get a little tripod mount, so you can stick that on any sort of regular camera tripod. That's actually really useful. It means you can put this in a lot of different areas if you have a small tripod for your desk, or if you have, for example, you want to have it just sort of off to one side, you can do that. But if you are going to be using it as most people use a webcam and have it on top of their screen, you do get this little mount. Now essentially what this little mount does is it has on it a little sticky pad. You peel that off, that sticks onto the back of the monitor, and it sort of hooks over the front of the monitor like so, and then it would sit on the monitor like that. And then once you do that, you can then stick the webcam on top, and it sticks on via a magnet, and that is how the camera should sit. But you can also be a little bit more flexible with that. You can use it just as a stand for the camera itself if you want to, get it in some slightly different angles. Not that you would need to do that because it does all the angles and everything like that on the gimbal. Now it is a 2-axis gimbal. That means it pans and it tilts. But it won't do sort of like side-by-side rotation as well. So it's only a 2-axis. Again, for a webcam, are you going to be needing that? No, you're not. So that's perfect. So before I go into actually showing you what this looks like, I thought I might as well just do the rest of the video from the webcam. So if we switch to the webcam, so now we are currently filming and recording audio through the Obsbot camera. Previously, what you were seeing was being filmed on my iPhone 14 Pro, and this is the difference. And actually, I think it's not too bad, especially when you have the same sort of setup as I had before with pretty good lighting. Obviously, the microphone isn't going to be anywhere near because I was using a standalone microphone, and now I've switched straight to just the webcam microphone. But I mean, I don't think it's particularly bad. It's obviously just not the same quality as before. And I've got to say, when the lighting and stuff like that is exactly the same as the other, I don't think it looks that bad. Obviously, the microphone is straight from the Obsbot, and that is just a webcam microphone. It's not going to be the same as the standalone microphone I was using. And it's perfectly fine for meetings and Zoom calls and stuff like that. If you're going to be streaming, I would then recommend getting a separate microphone. But even when you're on meetings like Zoom and stuff like that, you can use a separate microphone if the quality of this isn't good enough. It definitely is benefited by the fact that I do have a light just off of camera here. That makes a huge difference. In fact, what I'll do is I will just do a quick recording of how I've got this set up. So what I have here is my laptop, and this is me. You can see me. Hello, this is me on the laptop. That is then plugged in via USB-C straight into the back of the camera that is sat there on a tripod. Ignore all the mess in the background, that's not meant to be on camera. And then I have this light here that's just shining on me. It's not the best light in the world, but it does a pretty good job. And that's all I need to get this sort of setup going on. And normally what I would do is I just have this, instead of having like this, I just have my phone on there with the microphone plugged straight into my phone. Yeah, it's a pretty simple setup really, and I think it doesn't actually look too bad. Now the camera does have a few great features that I will demonstrate now. One of them is the ability to motion track, so it can track something that's happening in frame. For example, myself. It also uses hand gestures to be able to recognize when I want that to start and stop. So for example, if I was to raise my hand, there'll be a little flash on the light, which I'll show in a different video. And then as I move across, the camera will now follow me, and let's do the same if I do that over there. And then if I go back into the center of frame, it'll come back center, and then I can lock it back in place again, so it's not going to continuously move around all the time. Now, that doesn't just work side to side. It also works if I was to stand up and then sit down, it will go up and down again. So it's a pretty clever way of being able to make sure you're in frame. And if there's for any reason you're doing something in one place and then going to another place, it saves you having to constantly go and adjust your camera to make sure you stay in frame. It does it all by itself. The other thing that the camera can do is it can use these hand gestures to be able to zoom in. So let's say I'm not sat a meter away from the camera, I'm actually a couple of meters away, and I just want to show you something that's going on. I can use the same hand gestures to zoom in the camera. So I can do this, and it will zoom in to my beautiful face, and then you can see something that's happening quite close up, and then I can do it again and zoom back out. And that's going to make sure that you're seeing anything that's far away if I need you to. And obviously I have this up on my screen here so I can see whether that's done. But there's also a little light that flashes to show that it's recognized a hand gesture. It doesn't tell you what hand gesture is recognized, it just gives you sort of like a blue line flash across, but it is better than just not telling you, because otherwise you'd have no idea whether it actually worked. Now honestly, I think the camera quality of this is pretty good. Like I said, it's better because of the light. For example, if I was to switch some of the lighting off, that's going to make a difference to the camera quality, and it will automatically re-expose itself and adjust itself. It's currently a bit thrown off by my lights. So if I turn all that off and I'm in a fairly dark room, it's not actually that bad, but there's a lot of noise. It's not the sharpest image, so it is much better if you use some lighting. And I would recommend that no matter what you're doing, whether you're in a meeting or whatever. If you want to get a really good professional look, I mean, that's why you've got this camera. It'd be worth getting some lights alongside it. But I'm really impressed with how it handles colours. I'm really impressed with it. It's not going to be something that I think that would replace an actual dedicated camera for recording videos, but for things like live streaming, I think it does a pretty good job actually, and it's something that I probably would consider using if that's something I end up delving into. And for meetings and stuff like that, I mean, it's perfect because you don't really need the best camera in the world. I mean, most people just use the 720p camera on their laptop, and it's kind of shooting directly up into their nose. So having a dedicated camera for that is better, and then something like this is just a level up on that. Anyway, you're probably tired of watching this video with the bad audio. Not that it's horrendously bad, but it's just not as good as before. But before I switch back, I will quickly show you. There are some manual controls, because a lot of this is done just through the hand gestures. There is also a dedicated app you can get for your computer. So for example, I can load up the app on here, the little Obsbot Tiny Cam app, and I can manually control things like the zoom just through the app here. I can also manually move the camera around just using the controls in there. It doesn't need to just be through tracking, so you could have an operator who can do all this by themselves if you wanted to, and then I can recenter it on myself if I wanted to do that as well. And it's back to tracking me. And you can also set preset positions. So for example, if you have two desk stations, you can have position 1 and position 2. So you can have these preset locations stuck in, and it automatically will move around to those preset locations depending on what those presets are. And then I can go back to tracking. I can also switch it to manually start tracking without the hand gestures on here, just by pressing. So that is my demonstration of this camera. I'm now going to move back to the other camera. So if you want to level up your webcam usage, whether you're going to be doing things like live streaming or you're using a webcam for work regularly, this is going to be something that's actually going to be really useful, and I would definitely recommend it. That being said, I would limit this just to being for those kinds of purposes. I wouldn't be using this as a camera to record a video like this, for example, just because I just don't feel like the quality is good enough. even though it is a 4K camera, it doesn't produce videos with the sort of detail and depth and colour that I would probably want. And that being said, for a webcam, it's fantastic. It's a very, very good webcam for that purpose. But guys, I hope you found that video helpful. Links to this will be in the description below. Thank you very much for watching, and I'll see you in the next one. Whoop!